Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about the materials that you would need to start making fabric and paper postcards. For me, it's a way of trying out new ideas in a smaller format before I transfer them to something bigger. So I find it very useful, and because I'm part of a swap, I often make more than one so that I can send my postcards off to other people locally as well as round the world. So materials that you might need. Well, you can see there's quite a lot of things on the table here as a starting point. For fabric postcards, you will need a variety of fabrics. Hopefully you've got some in the house already and you won't need to go and buy any more. But if you do go and buy some more, it's a good idea to look around for packs of materials that would go together. Boys do them fat quarters that are in a bundle, and the range do them. The range is often quite a lot cheaper than elsewhere, and online of course. So any materials, any fabrics, there's a variety here, different colours. Those two there came in a bundle with some others. Dotty material, plain material, and things like Calico. I use Calico a lot, especially if I'm painting on it, to make a postcard, something that we'll do and look at later on in the group of videos. Medium weight is the best for fabric postcards. It's good as a stabilizer to go on the back of your top sheet of material that you're actually working on, because it gives you something to tie a knot into at the back. So that's Calico. This is quite nice. It's heavier, a lot heavier than the Calico. It's an even weave, and it's good because it frays, and sometimes you might want the effect of fraying. Obviously that would be straightened off and you'd then end up with a fringe around the piece of work that you were doing. This is silk, and silk comes in quite handy as well. Silk noil, which has got lots of slubs in it, which gives a really nice texture. You can also use things like pre-printed fabrics. That would make a postcard on its own with a little bit of stitch on it. It would look really nice. You can use things like this and then add extras to make a collage. The Scotty dogs, they were on a roll of fabric, so I've just cut them out ready to use. Flower cut out. You may see some of this during the course of the construction of some more postcards, because I've cut it up from a free gift that was with a magazine a long time ago, and some of the images are quite nice, so you may see that again. And the idea behind using fabric is that you can try things out. If it goes wrong, it doesn't matter. You're not wasting too much of your materials to construct something 6 inches by 4 inches. Another good fabric to use is felt. Doesn't fray, of course, so that's quite nice to use on the top. This is a little bundle that I got, not even sure where. Doesn't have a price on, but you can get felt in boys, various colours. Acrylic felt and a wool acrylic. Wool acrylic would be better. So I'm in the process of constructing this one here. I patchworked the background and did some extra stitch along here and here, put on these wooden bits of fence, and I bought a sticker to go on there. I'm not sure I like that at the moment, but you know, it's trying it out. And then there's some birds in the distance. I don't know if you can see the stitching there. And obviously it's got lots of bits of fabric, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of fabric on that one. Well, we won't be looking at that type of postcard to start with. We will start with just a couple of pieces. These are quite handy to have. This is old and battered, but it is 6x4 on the inside, so it gives you an impression of what our finished card will look like. So move that out of the way. Threads of all sorts, ribbon, lace, pins and needles. The threads will depend on what sort of effect that you want. You'll need a machine, a sewing machine, although it's not vital. I will show you how to make the cards with a machine and by hand. So if you don't have a sewing machine, it doesn't really matter, but it is handy if you do. You will need things like a good pair of scissors to cut fabric, and a good pair of scissors to cut paper and card. Not the same scissors, because if you use your fabric scissors on paper, you'll blunt them. A good little set here just for cutting threads. These are my paper scissors, and these are the good fabric scissors, and they were a gift, and a very well received one. A trimmer with a board, a self-healing board, and to use that you will need a ruler, either a metal ruler or a ruler that's got a metal strip along the edge. I shall move these out of the way. I've talked about them now, and just put them on the floor out of the way. Another good thing to have is a set of these. These are watercolor postcards. You can get them in a tin, and I find them quite useful to draw around, and I quite like the rounded edges that you get from this. And this is my second box because I've used some for watercolor as well. It's always a good idea to have some baby wipes. If you get sticky fingers from glue, they can clear that up quickly. If you spill glue, they can clear that up quickly. If your hands just get sweaty, they can help just to take that away. You will need glue, as I've just mentioned there. Pritt stick is fine for, or glue stick is fine for paper and thinner card. For fabric, I tend to use a fabric glue. I have a fabric glue in a stick, but it's quite expensive. PVA is fine, but you've got to be really careful when you are using a liquid glue, and that's something we'll look at in later videos. So moving on from the material fabric side of things, we'll go into the paper side of things, paper and card. It's always useful to have some decent pens and pencils, not just for the card but for the fabric. These friction pens I use on the fabric quite often, and they draw on fabric. They've got a rubber on the end, so you can then use friction to get rid of it using that rubber, or put an iron over it. But I suggest that you try it first, because sometimes they leave a residue, particularly with the red pen, and you've rubbed it, you've ironed it, it's gone, and then sometimes it does come back. So be careful with the friction pens. Test first. A decent pen, right for all, it's permanent, so you need to be careful with that one and how you use it, but I like to use it, it's got a fine nib, and if I need definition I use that. Any sort of pencil is good too. A masking tape, a double-sided tape, sometimes sellotape. As we go along, I will write a list of requirements for that particular video. So this is really just for you to be aware of what we might need. Baking parchment or something similar for when you're using your iron, because you're going to be using glue. Baking parchment, a baking sheet, anything that you can use to protect your iron on the top and protect your work surface underneath, so that the glue doesn't get transferred. We will be using a product called Bondaweb, and you can get this from Boys. It's got what looks like tracing paper on the back, and it's rough on the other side, and it's got a layer of sprayed glue on here. And what you do is you attach this to what you want to stick down, and then cut it out, take off the backing sheet and put the piece where you want it and iron it down. Again, it's something else I will show you when we need to use it. We also need Pelmet Vilene, which I've moved out of the way. This is what I tend to use on the back of my fabric postcards. I have used it on the back of paper and card postcards as well, because it's a good stabiliser, and it helps when you're stitching around the edge. It has a layer of glue, as the Wonderweb does, on one side, and I'll show you how to use that later. Paper and card. I have a selection of papers that I use. Book papers. National Velvet appears a lot in my recent work. Old music paper, newspaper, print. I'll get back to that in a minute. Paper with pictures on, magazines, The Living North, Dale's Life I've got here. You can take the text as well as the pictures out. You see I've been tearing things out of this one. All good for backgrounds. And this strip here would be nice, cut down and used as a background or part of a collaged background. So it's always worth picking them up, and this one is actually free. I'm not so sure about that, the Living North one. And save things that come through the door as well, leaflets and pamphlets, that sort of thing. You might want a section of this because you like the colour, so you may not even know that it's a courgette flower. It's just the ridges and the colour. It depends on how you think about your composition. Wow, that is absolutely fantastic. And the sunflower is pretty good too, if you can see it there.
this would be lovely in a background with maybe part of this fussy cut out. And by fussy cut I mean you cut close to the shape of the actual flower, and then it can be applied to the surface. So don't discard things like that. What else have I got here? Oh, this book. I bought this book in an antique shop for £3, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Lots of beautiful Gothic country images. Things for inspiration, things to look at for composition. But I hate to say it, I may well be tearing this up as well to use things in my work. Absolutely gorgeous. Keep an eye out for cheap books in charity shops. Other things that you can look for are textured papers. Mulberry paper is quite nice. It's got a lovely texture, and they're nice colours that you can buy. This is another paper. It's a lot more, it's a lot thicker and it's rougher. So it hasn't been as refined as the mulberry paper. Packaging paper, the good old Amazon packaging paper. Amazon card. Tracing paper is handy, but you don't have to spend a fortune on it. This here is the type of tracing paper that looks a little bit like vellum. This here is children's tracing paper. They both work. I don't know why you need to buy something more expensive. Copy paper, corrugated paper. Things from old birthday cards that I can recycle. Pictures from the internet. Pinterest's very good, and there's a lot of people who sell really good digital kits. That's from a book pack that I had. Keep old birthday cards. That's a sheet of information about Silverstone that will end up in a work somewhere. Catalogues. They've got lovely images as well as a variety of text. All of these things can be useful. Maps. And as I said, old books that you don't want anymore. Dictionaries, could be foreign dictionaries. Anything that would look nice in the background that we could use as a collage. So for example, look at this. This is a picture that I took from the internet, and it's got paper, I suspect, in the background. Then it looks like fabric. That's definitely fabric. That's a photograph that's been manipulated onto the backing, and then this is an extra piece that's been created, that's been sewn on the top. Of my version of that is this. Similar but not the same. I had this as paper and I scanned it in to the computer. I put that picture of a teacup over the top. I found some pictures of biscuits and another teacup, so they were printed out separately. Tea and biscuits was printed out separately, and then that was sewn onto the top. They were sewn on, and then I layered the teacup up. And this was for a swap. I think my original one, because this was a second one, you can see doesn't quite fit onto a postcard, so it needs another backing, but the other one did, and it went to America. Now there's a combination of paper and fabric there. I've got paper in here, so I mix and match them all the time. And you, as I mentioned earlier about a sewing machine that you would use to pull things together in one of these postcards, but you can also use sewing as an extra decoration on card. There's a piece of card here, and I've gone round with zigzag and straight stitch, and the backing was one piece. That's a sticker I've put on it, but it still needs some more work, but I wanted to put the stitch on first to frame the page. You can mess about with paint. So this is an A3 sheet from an art book, and I painted the background. It's got this lovely magenta colour, and then there's some, I don't know if you can see the gold on the top shining there. Then there are some feathers stamped on it all over the place, and I used a stencil to put some of the black lettering on. So that's a good base to work on as a background. This was similar in the background. It already had a start, and then I cut up pieces of paper and made this extra collage. So the backing was actually used from things I'd already made, and I cut up and put on there. And I shan't cut this one up. I'll keep this as a masterboard and copy it, and you'll see during the course of the work that bits and pieces of this will crop up because I've copied it and used it into something else. That needs more work. This is one that is actually quite a bit bigger, but I've only got an A4 copier and can't copy it all. So again, the colour in the background, that's how I started, and then I added bits of collage to it and stickers. This is through a stencil. It's raised up. Forgotten what you call it for the moment. It wasn't gesso, modelling paste through a stencil, so the dots were all raised up on the original, which I've still got, and I drew that on in the middle. I knew I was going to put that on, so I tried to keep it just a little bit paler in the middle. And this would be one that I would use, I would tear up, because it's not the original. Another good thing to use or to have is actual photo fabric, or inkjet printing cotton photo fabric, because then you can print your photos or your designs straight onto a fabric and use that. You can get self-adhesive photo paper. This one's matte. I think you can get gloss, and well, I'm sure of it. You can also get self-adhesive clear labels that may come in handy to print on, to apply. All these things I'll go into more detail as we progress through the course of videos. The very first video will be a basic one. It will be
one fabric onto another fabric using applique. So I hope that you can join me for that, and I look forward to continuing doing this course and building up skills, as well as a little stock of art for you so that you can keep it, refer to it, or even give it away. Cheerio!